Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam is explained by Paramahansa Yogananda and edited by Swami Kriyananda. And today's stanza, quatrain in the Rubaiyat is number 51. And I'm going to begin by playing Swami Kriyananda's voice singing the quatrain and then giving Yogananda's paraphrase of it, without which I know for myself it would be very difficult to understand the hidden meanings. So here we go, stanza 51.
Stanza 51. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor weed shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Paraphrase. The moving finger, cosmic law, governs destiny both in the macrocosm and the microcosm. It establishes vast cycles of change in the universe, including the great eons of time through which star systems move. It maintains the universal order and determines the future movements of galaxies, stars, and planets. These great cycles, once set, continue through all futurity. Cosmic law, in cooperation with individual human karma, sets the basic patterns of people's lives according to their former actions. Once these decrees have been issued, they too are unalterable. No amount of moral living, no theological hair splitting, nor any piteous tears can erase a single one of them.
Well, that makes it sound sort of inevitable, doesn't it? The law of karma, the cosmic law of karma, of cause and effect, as the Western Bible calls it, of reaping and sowing, and then reaping again and sowing again, and so on. This is the karmic law. And as the quatrain talks about, and Yogananda's paraphrase explains, it is exacting because any thoughts or actions that are born of the ego must inevitably be balanced out. And he goes on to explain or to hint that the way to not escape cosmic law, but the way that cosmic law of karma is naturally transcended is through the love of God. That is to say, through acting not born of ego, but in attunement with the divine will. And that can only take place when we marry our will with the divine will, when we attune ourselves with God and Guru, and we act in accordance to their presence, the awareness of their presence. Their presence is always there, but the awareness of their presence in our own selves. The kingdom of heaven The kingdom of God resides within us, as the Bible explains, as Jesus explains. And in the East, that is been understood for millennia, and they specialize in the East, in the anatomy of that inner life, the spiritual anatomy of that inner life. And Omar Khayyam had discovered that inner spiritual anatomy and was in complete harmony with it. And so it explains that, or the explanation is that when we act with God and in attunement and alignment with God's will in our lives, then those actions, even though they are working out our karma, they are mitigated somehow, so that if you were to fall and the injury of your fall was to lose a leg, you might just get a scratch on that leg. There is still some karmic consequence to that leg, but it is greatly mitigated. And so that is how it is explained that the law of karma acts in our lives when we are in attunement and alignment with God's will. It's very hopeful for all of us that we want to act in this attunement and alignment with God's will, not because it's going to mitigate our karma, but because we love God. And in fact, you can't fabricate that. You can not be in attunement and alignment with God's will. There's no way to fake it. There's no workaround. There's no way to pretend that we are. We either are or we're not. And it's only when we are naturally in love with God and present with God that our actions can be mitigated. And it explains why the great ones, when they act in this world and they're not coming from a place of ego, they are no longer acting out of compulsion as the ego does, but they act in alignment and attunement with God. Their actions are able to bring us great, great blessings. That is to say, the whole world, great, great blessings. Today is Good Friday, and as I speak this very moment is considered sort of the moment, the height of the memory of, from 12 to 3 o'clock, the crucifixion of Christ. And all of the West, all of Christendom in the West, tunes in this particular moment to remember and reflect on that great Master, Jesus Christ, who lived and who died in complete immersion of God's will and out of the love of God for all his children at that time, in a very, very dark cycle otherwise in human history. And so let's remember, because thankfully this greatest story ever told, the story of the life of Jesus Christ ends this weekend in the transformation and the resurrection of Christ, the uh, raising and the lifting of his soul, body, soul to the divine. And of course, the story doesn't end there. Because of that greatness and being recognized, millions around this world have continued to revere him and to love him. Yogananda used to say, Christ was crucified once, but his teachings have been crucified daily ever since. And just as Yogananda explains the hidden spiritual gems in this great Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, he also explains the mystical meanings in the life of Christ and how what he spoke of and what he offered to this world was spiritual freedom, and why for each and every one of us, not just this one great soul. He didn't come to show how great he was. He came to show how great each and every one of us are in the eyes of God. We are all children of that divine light. And so this Good Friday, let's remember that divine promise. And I wish you all, we wish you all a very blessed Easter weekend. Joy to you, and we'll see you again on Monday.